Again, the Oakley show and all. Yeah.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are. This is Huang speaking from China Cultural Center on commemorating the 110th anniversary of the Robert van Gulik. We have organized this exhibition subjected to Robert van Gulik and Chinese culture. So this is the second online event which we have planned. According to our plan, this will be very good opportunity to introduce to people about our exhibition. And also this time we have invited the very honored guests. One is Mr. Klaus Kauper, very famous Chinese sinologist. And the second one is Qingling Huang, the curator from Rijksmuseum, to join us. So this time we have already invited the guest curator, Miss Marianne, the granddaughter of Robert van Gulik, to guide a tour and also tell about the story and the program. Please, Marianne.
Thank you, Mr. Huang. Thank you very much. So first of all, welcome to you all. We're delighted to have you here with us on Zoom and also on Facebook Live to join us for a journey into Chinese culture. So as Mr. Huang announced, we're delighted to have a program with you today here online to accompany the exhibition, Refined Enjoyment of Elegant Leisure. I'm Marianne, I'm a granddaughter of Robert van Gulik, but I'm most of all a fan and an admirer of his work and of Chinese culture and arts. So today is the second talk as we announced, but I also want to let you know that we have a full program going on in the next month. So you can see it on your screen at the moment, is that next month on the 25th of March, we'll have a great talk with Lin Fan, Professor Lin Fan and Marc Gilbert, who will discuss also the Van Gulik collection at Leiden University and the illustrations of Robert van Gulik. So please tune in for that, and do note in your agendas that the 9th of April will be a young scholar symposium on Van Gulik, Rethinking Robert van Gulik, and that will be organized by the Royal Asian Art Society in the Netherlands. And then our finissage, our big day, will be on the 10th of April. We hope you can join us for that. We'll have an extensive program with also a Guqin performance, and we'll show the full-length documentary on the track of Robert van Gulik. So we do hope you can join us for that. So here we are at the China Cultural Center in Den Haag, and unfortunately, because of lockdown, we cannot visit at the moment. So we wanted to give you a sneak peek at the exhibition here. It will be very short, as some of you have already seen the exhibition, but we wanted to give this chance to show it to you. So this is an exhibition which will be on until the 10th of April. And I'll just take you around at the beginning so that we can see a little bit what we have here on show. It's a very interesting time because at the moment there is also an exhibition about Robert van Gulik at the Rijksmuseum at the Asia Pavilion. So hopefully when we'll be able to enjoy museums again, you can go and visit that at the Asia Pavilion. So this is it's coinciding with this exhibition. So here we have, we'll start here with the beginning. So our title, Refined Enjoyment of Elegant Leisure, it's based very much on the title comes of the pastimes of the Chinese literati, because the whole exhibition is centered about how Robert van Gulik, who was of course a famous sinologist, diplomat and writer, how he aspired to become one of these Chinese literati. So what is a Chinese literati? That is a scholar official who practices painting and calligraphy, plays music very much like Van Gulik. It's interesting to know how Van Gulik described these Chinese literati. He would call them men of great moral strength and intellectual power, very refined, conversant with the arts and letters, and at the end, a kind of man we would like to know better. We certainly agree with that. So our exhibition here explores the Chinese literati. It enables us to delve closely into the world of Chinese culture as a source of knowledge, inspiration and of creativity. So we will start here with our journey just to understand a little bit more background about Robert van Gulik. So mostly Van Gulik is known as the man of three lives. In this exhibition, we actually argue that there are more lives of Van Gulik. We call him a writer, a diplomat, a sinologist, but here we explore two other lives of Van Gulik, notably his life as an artist and as a collector. Which we want to bring to highlight throughout this exhibition. So in order to know Mr. Van Gulik a little bit better, we have here a little run through of his life. So it's important to know that Van Gulik had a lifelong fascination for Chinese culture, and it started as a young child in Indonesia, where he grew up. And also during this time, he would spend most of his time in the Chinese neighborhoods reading the calligraphy already. And we know from a very young age, he was already very talented, as he made his first ethnography at the age of 11. I didn't say it, I said it correctly, 11 years old, a 200 pages ethnography on the Wayang puppet, which is absolutely stunning. Later on, he studied in the Netherlands, Indies law, Chinese and Japanese language at Leiden and at Utrecht University. He started his career as a diplomat in Japan. And what's very important to remark, which we'll see throughout his life and throughout his work, is his time where he was stationed in Chongqing as a diplomat. It's in Chongqing between 1943 and 1946, which was the wartime capital of China, where Van Gulik met all these great literatis, great artists, thinkers, and intellectuals. He met artists like Fu Baoshi, Xu Beihong, Xi Baishi. They all became friends of his. He got into this really intellectual circle. And it's at this time that they would call Van Gulik more Chinese than the Chinese. It's also a very important time because he met his Chinese wife and he married in Chongqing. After that, he was promoted to various posts around Asia. And at the end, he died very young, unfortunately, at the age of 57. He was the ambassador to Japan, of the Netherlands to Japan. So he was stationed in Japan. We're going to start our journey here with the first chapter of this exhibition. So the first chapter is based about Van Gulik and his work as an artist. So Van Gulik had an enormous sense of creativity. So we know him also from the Judge Dee books, where he revived the legendary magistrate Di Renjie, a story which was forgotten in China. And what we see here, what we want to note is the drawings which Van Gulik used in his 17 Judge Dee books, which he wrote, which were bestsellers around the world and still very well read in China. They offer an insights into everyday life in ancient China. What's really interesting about these drawings, which we're going to look into detail in our next session, I just want to give you a short preview so you see a bit the creativity that's at use. Van Gulik had, of course, an extensive art collection and a book collection. You can find most of his original book collection at Leiden Asia Library. And what you can see is that he drew inspiration from these original sources of ancient books. And he liked those so much that he worked with transparent paper and he made new creations from them. So you can see some of the details which are taken from the original source, and then he adds characters, he adds details, he adds patterns to it, and it results in a very unique style which mixes East and West. So he made also this Chinese style of drawing accessible to the West. Here we see an example of this transparent paper which he uses. And there you can see how he creatively also added all these beautiful little details in the jackets, how he likes to add the traits of Judge Dee, his long beard. These are all Van Gulik creations. So today our talk is going to be centered around calligraphy and seal carving. So we're also going to see some of the calligraphy of Van Gulik. We're going to start here with an example of some of the cards where he practiced his calligraphy. So Van Gulik was also a bit naughty, and he liked to use the business cards of the embassy. So he would recycle them to make some of calligraphy. He very accomplished in the calligraphy here by Van Gulik. Van Gulik liked to give a name to each room where he lived in, and especially to his studies. So here we have Guang Hua Ge, which is pavilion for watching the transitoriness of life. So this is made by Van Gulik, and you see he likes this grassroots writing style, which is very beautiful. Underneath that, we have some personal objects from the collection of his daughter, Pauline Van Gulik. And what's very interesting to note is this beautiful little stone which they picked up on the beach together in Malaysia. And Robert Van Gulik remarked how special it was. He picked it up, and he found immediately a very good use to it, because not only is it beautiful, but as you see, it has spaces to put his Chinese brushes on. So Van Gulik saw the beauty in everyday things, but he also saw them as how he could use it in his practice of Chinese art, which is very nice to see. Okay, we're moving on to the second chapter here, which is about the collection of Robert Van Gulik. So Van Gulik was an avid collector, and what makes him so different from other collectors is that, first of all, he was a practitioner himself. He practiced the calligraphy. He drew himself, so he was an artist. You can say he was an artist himself. The second thing that differentiates himself as from other Orientalist collectors at the time is that he knew the culture so well. He studied it. He studied the Chinese arts. He wrote about it. Of course, his magnum opus is the Chinese pictorial art. But also he was friends with them. So he acquired his collection was also by famous painters, which he befriended himself, such as Fu Baoshi, and Shu Beihong, for example. Some of his collection you can visit at the Leiden Volkenkunde Museum, which has the beautiful Fu Baoshi and Shu Beihong from his collection. You can see some at the Rijksmuseum now, and there is a permanent collection or permanent exhibition in Chongqing at the Three Gorges Museum. In this part of the exhibition, we have set up a special display of a collection of the Robert Van Gulik collection acquired by Fei Yuliang, which is a famous collector based here in The Hague. So this is the first time that they're on show, and they're very special works. Notably, we have here a calligraphy by Ma Heng. Now, Ma Heng was a very famous scholar and art historian. He was director of the Palace Museum, so the Forbidden City, and he met Weng Yulik in Chongqing. And for his wedding, he made this beautiful calligraphy, which is here. And I'll just read the text to you because it's really beautiful. So he gave this to his friend for his wedding. And it says, a happy marriage of a man of learning and a wife from a family of sages, a fine combination of zither and lute, and a lucky pair of singing and following. That's really beautiful. Then we move on to here, where we can also see a very nice painting by Wang Su. And what's particular to note on all these works is that Weng Yulik, of course, put his seal. So there was always a lot of attention towards the mounting, but also the seal, which Koos will talk to you a little bit more about in a minute. This is the collection. So it's very important to know that Weng Yulik had more than 500 paintings. And as he said, of course, the Chinese have always been more jealous of their pictures than of their porcelain, because they considered, not without reason, that painting and calligraphy represent the essence of their culture. So it's hallowed by the association of great statesmen who made national history. That's a very important part of the pictorial art. Now we move into our final section here. So we all know Weng Yulik as a writer, mostly a sinologist and a diplomat. So here you can take a little bit more time to delve into these aspects of his life. So we made this little library here. So you're welcome to join us. We have some nice Dutch design furniture as well here. And you can enjoy some of his academic texts as well on the inkstones or on Chinese pictorial art, the Guqin. So that's a very nice space to explore. And we have here on show the documentary of Rob Rumbout on the track of Robert Weng Yulik. This is a very special documentary which follows contemporary people that have sometimes never met Weng Yulik, but who feel greatly inspired by him. This film will be shown on the 10th of April during our special program with the Royal Asian Art Society. So we warmly invite you for that. But before we move to the second part, we do want to give you a little forecast of that film, where we will travel to Chongqing to meet one of these Chinese literati, Mr. Huang, who will guide us a bit inside his own practice. So over to Chongqing.
En de Chinese luid. Hij sluit zich aan bij een exclusieve muziekvereniging, de Heavenly Wind and Lute Association.
天风古剧院呢，它最早是应该是在上个世纪的中叶裴都时期的时候啊，成立的天风琴社。那个时候就是全国的文化人，因为它作为裴都嘛，都聚集到重庆来了。当然高乐培在那个当中呢，是一个很活跃的一个参与的，应该说也是一个比较重要的一个成员了。 那个琴社呢，在那个特殊的历史时期里面，聚集了一大批文化人。高乐培他都想要尝试中国的那种读书人当中所有的项目，他都要尝。你看他写诗，他按照中国人的写诗的方式；他要写那个在画画，他也按照中国人。 中国的哲学思想是一个整体的来关照一个事物，它不会孤立的看一个事物的。
Professor Wang beoefent, net als Van Gulik, de muziek, de poëzie, de schilderkunst en de kalligrafie. De Heavenly Wind and Lute Association wordt na de zogenaamde bevrijding verboden en ontbonden. De leden worden zelfs vervolgd tijdens de culturele revolutie. 70 jaar later is professor Wang een van de heroprichters van deze vereniging.
那个对琴技术哈，你那种学习也是一种娱乐。实际上，高老婆一代，他了解了中国文化过，我想哈，他能够喜欢中国文化，也就在于那一点。你看他所有的那个研究，都是出自于他的兴趣爱好。
Okay. We're back in The Hague now. So we're going to go to our second chapter, which is, of course, with the presentations by Wang Qinling and Ko Scalper. So our topic today is Chinese calligraphy and seal carving, which are two important parts of Robert van Gulik's practice and studies. We're delighted to first welcome Dr. Wang Qinling to do a presentation. So he is curator of Chinese art at the Rijksmuseum. He made the wonderful exhibition, which is currently on show at the Asia Pavilion. And he received his doctoral degree in East Asian art history from the Freie Universität in Berlin. His research interests include Chinese painting, Chinese court art, exchange of visual and material cultures between Europe and Asia in the 17th and 18th century, as well as contemporary art. So it's a big honor to have him here today. Over to you, Qinling. Yes, so we are just going to put his microphone on. Is Qinling here? Because we can see his presentation. Okay, great. So here we are. Qinling is in Amsterdam. Okay, good. There we are.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Mariana, for the very kind introduction. It is my great honor and pleasure to be able to be here today and talk a little bit about Robert van Gulik. My understanding of Robert van Gulik was not much. Probably here, everyone here is probably know more than I do. I've well, before before this exhibition, I only know Robert van Gulik from his works, so namely his books, and I only started to study Robert van Gulik when I prepared this exhibition in the Rijksmuseum. And today I would like to share about Robert van Gulik in the Rijksmuseum and his practice of Chinese painting and calligraphy. Well, although today's subject is calligraphy and seal carving, but in a way, calligraphy and painting cannot be separated for the literati art. So.
Yes, and also just to note that there is a chat box. So if you have questions, you can also ask them through the chat box, and there'll be more information live that's transmitted through the live box as well, the chat box.
So in the Rijksmuseum collection, we had only one work that used to collected by him, which is this one, the ink bamboos by a Qing dynasty monk, Wu Zai. And this set of painting was came into the Rijksmuseum in 1993 through Professor Marcia Draak. This set of work was a gift for the KVVAK in 1993 for the occasion of the 75th anniversary. So, and very luckily and with great honor, last year the family of van Gulik donated several pieces of his work to the Rijksmuseum, so that now in the Rijksmuseum we have more of Robert van Gulik to see. Among the donated objects is also a Chinese painting from the late 17th century, early 18th century that was used to collected by Robert van Gulik. So Robert van Gulik studied Chinese painting and calligraphy, and he also had a great passion to collect them. And so he made his own inventory card and studied every object that he owned. Here we see the painting and also his note and his inventory card. So, but most important in this donation, we have Robert van Gulik's own calligraphy work. So here is a copper plate. So the right one was written 烟云过眼, so the mist and clouds passing before the eyes. And the left one, 百鸟赶耳, the sound being heard in the ears of 100 birds. And this copper plate was written by Robert van Gulik in 1942 when he was working as ambassador of Netherlands in Tokyo. But so this copper plate, but the question is what is the mist and clouds, and what sound was heard in the ears of 100 birds? So 烟云, this mist and clouds refers to Zhou Mi, the Song Dynasty literati, who wrote a famous book, 云烟过眼路, so records of clouds and mist before one's eyes. In this book, Zhou Mi documented the important collections around him, so from different connoisseurs and collectors, and most importantly, also his own painting and calligraphy collections. So here we could understand that the sentence, it means the mist and clouds. So here the mist and clouds refers to the collection of calligraphy and painting. So if we can be more precise here, I think Robert van Gulik means that the collection of calligraphy and painting passing before his own eyes. And the other sentence, 百鸟, 百鸟赶耳, here 百鸟 refers to the story of 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix. Since phoenix was the king of all the birds, so only the sounds of the phoenix would summon all the birds to come along. So here, the sound of phoenix refers to another hobby of his, namely the guqin playing. So if we can understand it more precisely, the second sentence should be the sound of my guqin, so Robert van Gulik's guqin, being heard in the ears of 100 birds. So this copper plate, so for me and for the Rijksmuseum, is really magnificent. Not only it is the calligraphy work from Robert van Gulik himself, but the content of the sentences also referring to the two important artistic activities he conducted. So in 1953, he published also the book Chinese Pictorial Art. And in this book, he studied the method of holding a brush and the structure of the Chinese brush, and also different effect of how to use brushes. So here, I think this diagram was also made by Robert van Gulik himself. And in this book, he also talked about the different styles or different scripts of the calligraphy. Here we see on the top left is the seal script, lower is the officer's script, and on the right-hand side is the running script and the standard script. Robert van Gulik practiced calligraphy every day, and he also tried to learn different script. I think at this point, we see mostly running script in his writing and also seal script in his writing. I haven't come across any cursive style that he wrote. Besides calligraphy work, we also receive a scroll with the imprint of all Robert van Gulik's seals that he used. But on the front part of the scroll also included Robert van Gulik's own painting, which is here we can see on the screen. And this is why I also said that the painting and calligraphy cannot be separated. And here it is so here probably Robert van Gulik sketched or drawed the object on his desk in his studies. So we can see a little bonsai, a teapot, and some books and literati rock. And most interestingly, there is a, how do you say that? Ink chuang, so the bed of ink. So, sorry, the bed of seals, so that it is used when carving the seals to fasten the stone, so that so it is easier to carve. And what it is very interesting is that this kind of carving seal used to be the artisan's job or artisan's work, but later around Ming dynasties, or even earlier, I think Goes will explain it much better than I do. The literatis also practice carving seals themselves. So here he says that on the painting, he wrote in seal script, 小道亦有可观者. So this little art, namely the carving seals, has also those which are worth appreciating. And the very, very last of the donation is that we received from the Robert van Gulik's family all the seals of Robert van Gulik, so that so here we can see the seals. On the left is an a seal box with the seals of Robert van Gulik. On the surface of the box, there's which is also carved by Robert van Gulik himself, and the text was a Han Dynasty poetry, and the poetry is talking about the seals as well, which reads 赤符在弓，非应不明；节传符节，非应不行。龟扭独鼻，用而作成。So roughly translation is that, so carrying the seals with you, with one, and without the seals, one cannot identify who he is. All those official documented, if there's no seals pressed on it, then they cannot count as official. And so this is why we use the seals to make the form. So it's a very rough translation, but I guess this is a nice beginning for Go's presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chinling. That's great. So now we're moving on to co-Skyper. Before, I would just like to note that there is a chat box here as well, so feel free to share comments. Lawrence is here. She will also share more information as we go, and we'll have some time afterwards for questions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to share those with us, and we will raise them in the third part. So now we're absolutely delighted to have Koos Kuiper with us, so he can go on mute. And Dr. Koos Kuiper was curator of the old Chinese and Japanese books and manuscripts at the Leiden University Library. He retired in 2016. In 2010, he created an exhibition about Robert van Gulik and his seals in the library. And this very nice exhibition can be seen also online. We'll share the link with you as well. Koos Kuiper works as an interpreter and translator of Chinese, Mandarin, and Cantonese. And in the past, he translated several works of modern Chinese literature into Dutch. And of course, he taught evening courses of Chinese for almost 40 years. So, Koos, we're delighted to have you here with us, and the floor is yours. We need to press the share screen button. Yeah, first.
I'm doing that, but oh yeah, I have it here. Yeah, I have it. I hope I have it. Yeah, this is it.
Super.
Yes.
And then we can just go to the diavorstelling button, which is on the right. Yeah, the third button on the right.
I want the full screen. Oh, yeah, that's,
yeah.
How do I do the full screen?
Yeah, so you go down on your right, and then you go to the diavorstelling.
This one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Diavorstelling?
Yeah, this one. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, the floor is yours.
Yes. Well, this is the title. Well, as an introduction and to give a foretaste, I'll show a few seals carved by Van Gulik. These are on the scroll, which has been given to the Rijksmuseum recently. On the left, you see a seal he carved for his friend Ye Qiuyuan when he was in Chongqing. The text is in white, the background is in red, like the oldest seals from the Han Dynasty. The name is written here, especially with more difficult characters. Usually, you can see here, Qiuyuan would be written like this, but here he chose for variant characters. Seal carvers often like to make more complicated or different characters. These are written in the so-called seal script, which is actually the normal script about 2000 years ago in China. In Chinese, it's called Zhuan or Xiao Zhuan. So this is a predecessor of the modern script. Well, the second one is a seal he made for the Dutch embassy in Chongqing. It's also in seal script, normal seal script, and it's very clear. It's clearly written, and it has a large border, which one often sees with official seals. The one on the right is a personal seal. His name is here spelled, written in an even more ancient script. It's maybe Tatuan or some older script. This is a very special seal. You see. The part of it is in white, part of it's in red, and there is a kind of symmetry in this seal. The Chinese very much like this kind of symmetry in seals. It's called Hu Ying, for instance. It's calling and responding. You'll see more of that. Well, seals originally were a very practical utensil. And Van Gulik also wrote in his essay, it's an important essay about seals, the connoisseurship of seals in his magnum opus Chinese pictorial art, that these seals serve to authenticate official documents, deeds, written contracts, and were a symbol of authority. This is actually the same in the West and in many countries. So on the one hand, it's a proof of authenticity, and on the other hand, a proof of authority. There were both government official seals and there were private seals. Sometimes seals were made just to write a saying or another interesting motto. Later in China, it developed in two directions. On the one hand, the practical legal instrument remained. On the other hand, it became a work of art. In the West, we do not have this, this development. Now, as a background, I'll have to tell a little about the origin of seal carving. Well, the main old period is the Qin and Han period, which is about contemporary with the Roman Empire. That was always considered as the acme of seal carving, the classical period. In later periods, these were often imitated. Seals were usually in bronze or some other materials. They were cast in bronze. And the result was a three-dimensional imprint. Here we can see the imprint of a seal from the Han Dynasty. It was printed in clay, which was affixed to a document. And documents at that time were written on slips of wood or bamboo, which were bound together with a string. And then later this piece of clay was put upon it to authenticate the document. Note here that the text is protruding for clarity. Here I have some examples of seals. You can see here 4 pictures of seals, bronze seals, which all have a knob to affix a string to fasten the seal to one's belt or other clothing. Officials were always using, or always carrying around their seals as a proof of their authority. Here we see some imprints of these seals also, but now they are in ink, not in clay anymore. On the right side, I hope you can see it. I cannot see it because I see all kinds of faces now. How do I get this thing on the right? How do I move it? I don't know. Yeah, so we cannot see this. That's a pity. Well, these are a few seals from the Han Dynasty. The traditional ones, you see the text is in white. They are written in squares and they are in different styles. But the most important one I cannot show because I see myself here all the time. Or maybe this kind. Yes, it's now this is an important seal. This is in what they call the straightforward ancient style. It's maybe a bit simple, but it's also much aspired as one of the classical styles. We'll later see that this was a specialty of Van Gulik. Oh, and now I continue the history. Well, first they were imprinted in clay in 3 dimensions, but from the 4th century onwards, paper was used in China. So the seals were printed on the paper, and the result was a 2-dimensional thing. These were printed in red ink to contrast with the black text. Well, seals became more and more important and larger in the following period, in the Tang Dynasty. They were larger, and there was a special type of writing someone wants to control. Elizabeth van Toorn-Pro, no. A special type of writing here, Jiu Jie Wen, which is called 9 times folded script. Oh, someone is controlling my screen now. This kind of trip you can see here. This is a much later seal on the left side. I try to go there now, here, the left side. This is this 9 times folded script to show you an example. Hey, someone is working. I don't know what's going on here. Someone's going.
Oh, can we? Otherwise, we can show the presentation, Shirey.
Someone is.
Oh, that's very
Someone is controlling my screen.
Oh, yeah, that's very annoying. I don't know how that's happening. Don't worry, because we'll put a presentation from our side, and then you can just say next, and then we'll put this right slide. Okay?
Yeah, next.
Okay, no problem.
Next.
It's fascinating. Yeah, we're just putting it on full view, and then we can enjoy the rest of the fascinating talk. Yeah.
Next.
It's all very difficult with this technology, but I have to do with it.
I'm now in the next one. Now.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So we're in here. Okay.
No. Let's see. Go up.
Up.
Go up. No. Where are we now?
No. We're further.
This one, we were here.
Yeah,
yes.
okay, great.
Well, here you have the 9 times folded script. And I give you one example. This character here, has only 4 strokes, and it becomes like this in the 9 times folded script. In this way, the whole seal is filled with lines. And here we have another example. It's only 2 or 3 strokes, and here it becomes like this. It's folded up. It's not necessarily 9 times, it just means a lot of times. So that was a new development. And this kind of seals have been used until 1914 in China. And then they were abolished and more easily readable characters in seal script were used. But another new thing in the Tang Dynasty, so this, the 600 to 900, is that collector's seals appear. So in particular, the emperor, this is an imperial sign, imperial seal. Emperors like to print their name or the region, their name on pieces of art they had collected. This is one from the Tang Dynasty. This is one from the Sung Dynasty. So that's about the year 1100.
Is that the next slide?
No.
Okay, this is this one. Yeah, okay.
And I'm using the cursor. Can you see my cursor?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we can see.
I'm-
Okay, great.
But you have another cursor here. This one is a personal seal. It's a studio name. Zhao Mengfu was a yes. Zhao Mengfu, he was a famous painter and calligrapher and also seal carver, and he put his studio name on his calligraphies and paintings. Next. Yeah, Zhao Mengfu, he also is in another way important. He pleaded for revivalism of Qin Han seals. So go back to the ancient seals, the classical seals as examples. The next important, no, back, yeah. The following important is Wang Mian. He was also a painter, and he discovers that one can also carve stones as seals. Up till then, stones were seals were made of bronze. Artists could make a design, but an artisan had to make the seal, to cast it. From now on, the artist could do the whole thing himself, and it became a basic art of literati. And this is also called using the iron brush, the iron writing brush, just like calligraphy, but now in iron. Then in the Ming Dynasty, we have several famous masters, Wen Peng and He Zhen, are often mentioned. And in Ming and Qing Dynasty, we have several schools of seal carving. These are mostly regional schools having their special techniques. But there was another development, and that's of epigraphic studies. So studying ancient inscriptions on bronze vessels, stone, on old coins, etc., were done as an inspiration for seal carving. On the other hand, the 9 times folded script was not used anymore by artists because they didn't find it elegant. Well, it fills up the whole space. That's maybe the one reason for it. And it's not ancient. It's only dating from the 7th or 9th century. Next. Here there are 2 seal carvers, famous seal carvers, that have sometimes been seen as example of Van Gulik. So therefore I mentioned them. This is Ding Jing. Look especially at this one, the right upper one and the lower one. These are in the Han Dynasty style, white text on the red background. And look at this one. What is appreciated most in this seal is these red pieces in the right corner, left corner, opposite to each other. This is another example of this calling and responding. This is an important, this is very much admired, this kind of effect. Then here we have a black piece, which is the inscription on the side of a screen. This inscription can be very important because it gives the date, the name of the maker, and maybe for whom he made it. In my research, these side inscriptions are essential. On the right side, you see Deng Shiru's seal carving. Actually, these are only 4 sides of a 6-sided piece of stone. This is the upper, this is the lower, and this is the sides with longitudinal sides on the side. These ones, the upper ones, are in Han style, I would say. It's white text on a red background, and this also has a square around it. And the ones below are in what I said, Sung style. It's more curly way of carving. And this one's particularly interesting, I think. It says Gu Huan. It means antique joy. And this is the word antique, and you almost see a laughing mouth here, and here more of them. So these 2 carvers were important for Van Gulik. Next. In the 19th century, there were new trends of more natural and spontaneous ways of using the knife, for instance, by Wu Changshuo and Qi Baishi. And here I have 2 examples by Qi Baishi, a famous painter, calligrapher. The one on the left, first, you see these strokes were made in one cut. He didn't polish it anymore. And he also naturally directly cut on the stone. He didn't make a design. Now, what's appreciated about this, admired about this sealer, is the contrast between the full parts here. This is the first character, first, second, third, and the last 2. The first and the third character are full, and the other 3 are empty. Chinese like this kind of contrast. Here is a similar thing. Here on the right corner, we have a dense character, and the other 3 are called sparse. Well, finally, in this history of seal carving, we come to the 20th century. This is important for Van Gulik. In the 1920s and 30s, new Chinese trends in seal carving and painting were introduced in Japan. There were Japanese going to China, learning with Chinese seal carvers, and there were Chinese invited to Japan to teach the new techniques. So now we come to Van Gulik. Next. Next. Yes. Well, the main periods for his seal carving are the first 10 years, 1935 to 46, the years in Japan and the years in Chongqing. There's also a third period important, but not as important as the first 2. Well, in this first period, very important for him was a person named Sun Di. Well, this character is, in his case, read as Di. Usually people would read it as Shi. He was 3rd secretary of the Chinese embassy, and he was teacher of spoken Chinese for Van Gulik. But not only that, he was himself also a calligrapher and a painter, and he had a great interest in Chinese literature. So this was a very good friend for Van Gulik, and they had a lot of contact during these years. Another important person is a Japanese carver, famous seal carver, Matsumaru Tokyo. This was also a person who often went to China. And he carved 15 seals for Van Gulik, the largest number. Well, when he started to learn how to carve seals, we do not know how he started learning it, but he may have used this book. This is a handbook of seal carving. Next. It's compiled by a Japanese who had been to China many times, who had studied with famous Chinese seal carvers, such as Wu Changshuo. And this book appeared in 1933. Van Gulik had a copy of it, so I think he may have used it for his carving. Well, here you see a few pictures of how it works for a beginner. But you first need what they call a seal bed, yin chuang, and you have to affix the seal in it with wedges in this way. You can reproduce the text you want to cut on the top and wrap the seal in paper. And then you take the knife, which is an iron knife with a little bit of strings around it to protect your hands. There are, well, several ways to hold it, and this is one of them. with just like a pen. And then you can cut like this. And according to this handbook, when you cut like this, you should always cut forwards, upwards. There are other handbooks which say, well, you should always cut to the left, from the right to the left. There are different ways. Next. Here you see another way of holding the knife in the fist. This is used when you have to use more force. And you see in this case, there's no seal bed. The more advanced carvers, they can do it by hand. But I think they better put on gloves. At least you shouldn't try it at home. Put on, you may cut your fingers. Yeah. Next. There are three important requirements for seal carving. The first place, you should know about calligraphy. You should be able to write very nicely in different ways, and you should also know old scripts. Well, Van Gulik, he certainly knew how to do that. Then the second one is spacing, the composition of the characters on the seal. And this is a little different from normal calligraphy because you have much more freedom to do so. You can make characters which have very few strokes. You can make them small, others you can make large. You have a lot of liberty. This is a special thing. And then, of course, you should know how to use the knife. I just told a little bit about it. There's much more to say. What was the motivation for Van Gulik to learn to carve seals? Maybe one of them was it is helpful for his connoisseurship. At least that's what he said himself. On the other hand, he also liked to do things with his hands. He liked to do things himself. Next. Now we talk about Cao seals from the first period. This is a very often seen seal. It's just his name, Cao Lo Pei Yin, seal of Cao Lo Pei in seal script. He carved it in 37 or maybe even earlier. And one can see it on many of his pieces of calligraphy. This is one piece of calligraphy where he put it. One can also see it on official documents. For instance, his marriage certificate of 1943 also uses this seal. So it has both a legal meaning and its artistic meaning. Next. These are the seals on the calligraphy which Wang Jingling just showed, which I think has another meaning than a second meaning. I sent a little message about it. I think clouds and wind is also referring to the war. And these sounds is referring to the rumors, because at that time in March 42, the Netherlands Indies government capitulated to the Japanese, which nobody had expected. So it was a very difficult time for him. I think it has another meaning also. Of course, the quotations are fine, but this is the real meaning. So Van Gulik liked to do this kind of thing. Here we see the first seal. These are both name seals. The first one is Zhithai Taoren in Chinese. And in Japanese, it is Shiba Dai Dojin, which means the Taoist of Shiba Terrace. Well, Shiba was the quarter of Tokyo where he was living, and the embassy was on a hill. So this is just a way to refer to the place where the embassy was. It's in 9 times folded script, you can see here. For instance, this last character only has 2 strokes, but look how folded up it becomes, like this. At that time, he didn't realize maybe that this kind of writing was not appreciated by artists. At least that's what he says later. Now this Zhithai or Shibadai was later shortened to yes, the Taoren, the Taoist was left out, and it was just the name he used in China and also later in Japan. And then it gets a different meaning because this first character, Shiba, means grass field, which was the name of the quarter of Tokyo where the embassy was. But in Chinese, it's the magic fungus, which has also Taoist connotations. So it's the terrace of the magic fungus. The second seal has Helan Cao Lo Pei Yin, which means seal of Carl Op Hey, Robert van Gulik from Gelaan, from Holland. And you see it has the wide border of official seals. It's in normal seal script. But the special thing is the name of Holland, Gelaan, is written with a different character than it's nowadays. Yeah, the first character is harmony.
Yeah, but the video is not working.
Yeah. Am I still there? Can I continue?
Yes.
Yes. Well, this is harmony. And in that time, the official name of the Netherlands, of Holland, Gelaan, in both China and Japan was Gelaan with harmony instead of the normal one, which has lotus. Actually, this is the oldest name of Holland in Chinese. It dates from the beginning of the 17th century. But in the middle of the 17th century, the modern form already came into use, the modern form with lotus. But at this time, it was for some time the official seal of the Netherlands. In 1944, the Dutch government reverted to the older form, the original form with lotus. It's not, well, it's not the original form. This is the original form, but the later form, which was the common form. Now, next. Can I have the next? Yes. In another corner of this calligraphy, we see this seal. This is again the same one seal we had, well, the same text as the seal on the bottom, Taoist of Shiba Terrace or Magic Fungus Terrace. This was made by a Japanese seal carver, Shinma Seison, in January 1940. And here we also see a rubbing of the side text, which gives the date and the name of the carver. Next. No, well, this is also okay. This is okay. Well, these are two other seals on this calligraphy. This is a quotation. How can one enjoy a finite life if one doesn't do useless things? This was said by a famous art historian and art collector, Zhang Yanyuan. And he said this when his wife was complaining to him, why do you spend all your times on these useless paintings and don't earn money, something like that. Enjoy a finite life. This is refers to Zhuangzi, the Taoist philosopher. This is all written in seal script. I think it's quite nice seal. It's a very large one also. The second one is Zhonghe Qin Shi. This means the lute room or the Guqin room of central harmony. It's made after the example of a seal by Zhu Quan in the 15th century. It's a good exercise to copy other seals. And Van Gulik immediately liked this seal when he heard about it. And it's not only because it's Zhonghe, but Zhonghe is a very ancient concept. Central harmony, you can also say equilibrium and harmony. One can find it in the Zhongyong, one of the 4 books which were canonical literature in Confucius China. So everybody knew this. But it also appears in an important piece of literature, Xi Kang's poem of the lute. This poem, a very long poem, was translated by Van Gulik and published in 1941. And there it's applied to music, to good music. So Zhonghe has lots of meanings. But for Van Gulik, it also had another meaning. I'm sure of that. He never says it, but it's very clear, because this also means Sino-Dutch lute room. Because in that time, this was the way this character was used to represent Holland. Next. Oh, yes. Van Gulik also had several collector seals. Well, there are only 2 actually, and you can see these on his paintings, the paintings he collected, and also in his books. This is a larger one, a little bit larger, 2.5 centimeters, and he must have carved it himself in around 1940. And the second one is by Matsumaru Togyo in June 1941. Next. The next. Yes, now we come to the Chongqing period. This is a seal with the name of the new name of his library after he married. When he married, he thought he should have a more romantic name, so he chose the name Hut for Singing to the Moon. Well, in Chinese, it's very simple, Sing Moon Hut. You can see there are different ways of writing this. And here also, as I said before, carvers like to use variant characters. This is in Han style. It's a white text on a red background. And Van Gulik says about this seal, he writes about it, he says, Chinese connoisseurs very much like the characters. They are so very much like the spacing. You see here, this is the first character, which takes a lot of space. Then you have the second one, which is a smaller one. Moon takes little space. And then the third one, all his paintings. I think he put it on all his paintings he collected. Yes. There's a question by Paul Ruitenbeek. I think so. At least he did in all his books, every volume of them. So I suppose he also did it on his paintings. But Van Gulik also says something about this. This seal is a problem. He said it's overworked. He has been polishing it again and again. Probably he wanted to make it very good. But in this way, all natural spontaneity was removed from it. I think he made the lines too straight and too clear. Usually they are a little bit crumpy, and that gives an impression of naturalness, spontaneity. But still, it's an important seal. Later, he made another one for the same, with the same text, but with again different characters. Here you have Sing, Moon, Hut. You see two characters on the right, one on the left. In seal carving, you can do that. And this moon is very special. It's diagonal. Yes, I don't think one sees that often. And it reminded me of typography in the 1930s, where you often have letters with this kind of diagonal lines in it. But this is just a thought by me. Next. Here we have a seal which was not carved by, but for Van Gulik by Ma Geng. We already know who he is. It's also the same text, Hut for Singing to the Moon, again with different characters, carved in November 1945. You see here, Sing, Moon, Hut. And especially this part, Moon, gives a little bit of movement to the whole thing because of its reclining strokes. I think it's a beautiful character. And Van Gulik certainly, he loved it because he printed it on several of his books. This is the erotic color prints from the Ming period. This book was published in 50 copies. And in each of them, he printed by hand, at least I think he did it, this character in the contents. And he also printed some other characters in this book. Here we have another Dutch book about from 1955, on which it was printed on the cover. Yeah. Next. Now, there are about 30 seals on this scroll by Van Gulik for other people. And some of them we know, some of them we don't know. And these are people we don't know, or I'm not sure of them. Some readings are also not sure. Most of these readings have been found by Laurent Long, with whom I'm cooperating in this project. For instance, this one, the second one, Hua Ling Ze Yin. Maybe it's Richard Hua. Richard Hua was a good friend of Van Gulik. He came very often to his house. They went to all kinds of places, most of, yes, shops, antique shops, and etc. You can see it's also in different styles. This is more the Han style we have seen earlier. This is a very ancient type of writing. Yeah. I see Marilyn is saying a lot. I know these things, but okay, I cannot tell everything. I don't have so much time. These are also seals for other people. You see the different styles. Next. Now the conclusion. Well, the number of seals carved in these years, I already told you, from 36 to 46, where this was the most important time. He carved 38, at least we found 38, there may be more. And afterwards, during 20 years, he only carved 7. Then the question is, why did he do less? Well, Chen Zhimai, in his biography of Van Gulik, says his eyesight was so much deteriorating, he couldn't do it anymore. This is one of the later seals, and you can see it's in a completely different style. This is also something which Laurent Long discovered and told me. This is the studio of Standing Firm, so it's he made it for a friend. It's the name of studio. But he said, when he was carving this, the lower part was crumbling off. So he couldn't do anything with it. He had to concentrate on the upper part. So most of the strokes are in the upper part. But this is a little bit in the more natural, spontaneous style that we saw of Qi Baishi. Now the appreciation of Van Gulik's seal carving is very clear. There are several colophons praising him, and one of them also by Ma Heng. And Ma Heng says, well, nowadays he's also studying oracle bone inscriptions, so that's the most old type of writing in China. But he also says, I'm sure he will be a great scholar in every aspect, not only in Qin, so lute studies, but and seal studies, but also in other studies. Actually, he was saying the truth then. And here is another appreciation by a famous seal carver, Chen Shoutie, whom he knew already in Japan. Chen Shoutie went to Japan several times to teach Chinese painting and seal carving and calligraphy. Well, this Chen Shoutie, he wrote, it is zhuo er ya, so it's elegant in its straightforwardness. This zhuo is difficult to translate. It can also mean clumsy and stupid, but here it refers to the most ancient types of art and of seal carving, which is very much appreciated by everyone because of its forwardness, its directness. This is the last one.
Excellent in-depth presentation. We look forward to seeing more. I believe there's a book that will come out of your research. We look forward to seeing more of that. Yes. In the meantime, we've received some questions, so we would like to remind everybody that you could ask your questions. We are a little bit over time, so we'll only select a couple. But if you have more, feel free to mail them at info@chinaculturalcenter.com. Den Haag, it's on the website, and we'll get those for you. And there'll be a lot more, of course, on the 9th and 10th of April also about his Chinese art practice and collections. We have a few questions which we would like to highlight. I think one of them was by Paul Ruitenbeek. Paul Ruitenbeek has also a gallery, Asian art gallery in Amsterdam. Paul Ruitenbeek asks, and I think this is more also for Qinling and for Koos, did Robert van Gulik put his own collector's seals on all the paintings he collected? And if not, what would make him decide whether to or not put his seal? So of course, the seal was in his collection. So maybe we can ask Qinling.
Well, not all that I'm sure. The reason why I don't know, but we do come across several paintings that belongs to Robert van Gulik, but doesn't bear his collector's seals. I think mostly on modern paintings that doesn't have the collector's seals, but I think in most of the ancient paintings that he collected, he has his seals on it.
Okay. Koos, do you want to say something about that?
Well, I don't know much about his calligraphies and paintings, but in his books, he puts it in all books.
In all books.
All
Yeah.
books.
Yeah, he has a special seal as well. Thank you. And then we have some great comments from Marilyn about Ju Chuan, that he was a prince. So people who are having lots of thanks to Koos, who are learning so much. And then there's a question from Shui Ying, which says, ask which measurements does a large seal, which measurements does it require? So how large can this seal go? Because we see some quite large ones that were also by Wang Yulik and other ones.
If you ask me, well, there are seals with 5-6 centimeters in wide. Yes, but there must be larger ones. I don't know. Maybe emperors have even larger seals.
Yeah, we can pick them up with more people. Okay, wonderful. And then we also have a question for Wang Qinling before we go. Will there be an online exhibition for those who can't go to the museum? This is a question from...
No, but we do have a short introduction film. So maybe the CCC can help us to attach that link of the film to introduce that exhibition.
Yeah, okay, so there's a really good introduction film by Qinling, which we will also show on the 10th of April, and that Qinling walks you through the exhibition. So please join us on the 10th of April. We'll be sharing more information on that shortly, so you can follow the entire program through the Royal Asian Art Society in the Netherlands, and on the China Cultural Center Den Haag website, you'll find more information. So we have to go, unfortunately, we're over time, but thank you so much, first of all, to Koos and Wang Qinling, who have given us really new insights and wonderful presentations. So thank you so much. It's been a great honor to have you with us today. And we would like to thank all of our friends who joined us. We see 80 names here. I mean, I see some of the names, but maybe we can show them because we haven't been able to show all your beautiful faces, but yeah, it's great. We have people from all around the world. So thank you very much for having joined us. It's been great to meet you together today. And we look forward to seeing you on the 25th of March for our next talk. And of course, on the 9th and 10th of April for a big day. So thank you very much, and stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you soon for more adventures into Chinese art.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're out.
Yeah.